Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going, and as I like to remind you each and every day, it expands our base. In 1981, when Ronald Reagan assumed the presidency of the United States, a lot of people called it the Reagan Revolution. It was, to a degree, but the Reagan Revolution pales in comparison to the Trump Revolution. It has been less than 24 hours, and already we have seen a remarkable shift in American policy. The first thing to say is that Donald Trump made statements, and he is following through on them. For his supporters, this is a thrill. For his opponents, it is the darkest of nightmares. And so, please understand, it depends on where you sit as to how you feel about Donald Trump and his revolution. Let's begin with the issue of pardons. Donald Trump has virtually pardoned all, or granted clemency, let's be clear, to all of the January 6th defendants. He has put a stop to any discussion about the implications of January 6th in courts of law. It is something to behold. He promised he'd do it on day one, and he did. For half of America, they're thrilled. For the other half of America, horrified. And let me point out that Joe Biden also issued pardons. And it's important to note that what Joe Biden did was something done to preempt not just prosecution, but persecution. He felt that Donald Trump was going to go after his family, what he called the Biden crime family, and so he acted preemptively. It is also important to note, as we did yesterday, that Dr. Fauci, General Milley, and the January 6th committee all received preemptive pardons because there was a fear not of prosecution, but of persecution. And I say this because I think it is so essential. Donald Trump went on, in terms of his policies, by signing executive orders. I've never seen anything like it. 200 executive orders on the first day of his presidency. We've never had a president undertake that kind of massive move. And included in those executive orders was withdrawal from the World Health Organization, abandonment for a second time of the Paris Climate Accords. The idea that this president has made certain decisions which are going to have a long-lasting effect, not just on the United States, but on the world. And what does it all mean? It means that the federal government is determined by who wins the election. The American people made a choice. Donald Trump is correct in that. But my goodness, look at the implications. And if I may, a word about the inaugural address of Donald Trump. Inaugural addresses are generally upbeat, positive, powerful statements about a vision for America. That was not Donald Trump's way of doing it. Instead, Donald Trump essentially delivered a campaign speech in which he promised that he would fulfill his campaign promises. In his book, Presidents Speak, Davis Newton Lott recalls all of the inaugural addresses of America's presidents. So I thumbed through it just because, well, I know the book and I knew Dave Lott, and I wanted to see what he would say. Of course, Dave unfortunately has passed away, but it is clear that he viewed the presidents speaking in their inaugural addresses as an upbeat, positive approach, not only to America, but to the world. That is clearly not what Donald Trump intended, and it is clearly clear that he made a decision to articulate his own gripes and his views. One of the things that I found fascinating was that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris sat passively during the inaugural address. They only applauded a few times, particularly when it came to the quick words about the hostage release from Israel. This is something to note because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, now former president and vice president, sat there and took it. Now, the question becomes, what will Republican leaders in the United States Senate say about all of these executive actions? And when will Congress gear up to really make a move? One of the things that intrigues me is that in the House of Representatives, because Donald Trump plucked various representatives out to serve in his cabinet or in his administration, the Republicans have only a 2-vote margin. It is entirely possible that there will be a flip in the House of Representatives sometime in the next 2 years. But what we do know is that when there is a midterm election, when that election takes place in 2 years, little less, it will really be a referendum on the Trump revolution. A lot of discussion about what it all means. It means a lot. Let me remind you, on the international front, that Donald Trump is still talking about taking back the Panama Canal, something which is being resisted by the Panamanians. The question of Ukraine remains wide open, and maybe there is something of a split in the administration. Marco Rubio, inaugurated today as Secretary of State with unanimous approval from the United States Senate, by the way, is in favor of supporting Ukraine. Donald Trump, far more ambivalent. And what about the future of NATO? Donald Trump made clear yesterday in remarks that he made after the inaugural address that support for NATO is contingent on each NATO country kicking in 5% of the cost per nation. This is a real reversal in American policy. This goes back to something that I have talked with you about in the past, and that has to do with the power of the presidency. The President of the United States, ultimately, is the person in charge. It is their policies that will be implemented. For the United States of America, the Trump revolution has begun. There is a lot riding on it. If Donald Trump is successful, the Republican Party will have a firm grip on power. If Donald Trump is not successful, the Republicans are in deep trouble. I am reminded of the expression, the arrogance of power. If Donald Trump pushes ahead, as he appears likely to do, the arrogance of power will be demonstrated. The question is, how will we, the American people, respond? And how will Republicans in the Senate and the House respond? All of these questions remain open. I want to close by saying that I regret that we do not have a radio talk show, because, believe me, if we had such a show today, we would have a lot to talk about and a lot of interaction, which you and I would most certainly have. I welcome your comments on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and of course, you can email me. All of these vehicles for communication remain open. In the meantime, you and I will be riveted to the news to see what happens next. It is a fascinating moment. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. Make sure to follow along. Let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow, which, of course, is our goal. My deep appreciation to Gogo Zoger, who makes this vehicle possible. Gogo, thanks so much. And to all of you, I will be back tomorrow, right here on Around the Political World with John Rothman. The way things are moving, heaven only knows where we'll be tomorrow. I can hardly wait.